Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we are going to learn how to pass some kind of data to the template. So in the previous lecture what we did is that we actually had this template right here, which was hello.html, and to basically load up this template in our website, what we did is that we actually associated an index function with the URL, which is a simple slash. So basically we have associated the function index with the root URL, and to this function, or in this function, we have basically rendered the template by simply using the render template method. So what happens in this is that whenever the user enters slash, this template or this render template function actually renders the template, which is hello.html, which is nothing but this HTML file, and we get the output. So this time what we are going to do is that along with the URL, we are going to pass in a particular username, and that username is actually going to be displayed on the hello.html page. So right now, as you could see, there is absolutely nothing in the hello.html page. So what we are going to do first is that we are going to pass in that particular name as a variable to this URL right here. So instead of pointing out to this URL, let's make a new URL which is called as welcome. So let's say you want to design a welcome page for each user. So you type /welcome/ and you actually want to pass in the username to this. So we pass in the username as username. So this thing right here is a variable, as you could make out from these brackets right here. So once we have this username, what you need to do is that you also need to pass in this username to this function right here. So we go right here and we type in username here as well. So what this thing does is that this function is now going to accept the username, and finally we need to pass in the username here as well. So just give a comma and type in name equals, and that should be equal to username. So once this thing is done, we are pretty much good to go. Now the thing is, what we have done is that we have passed in the username and we have saved that username in the variable name. Now what we want to do is that on the welcome page, or on this hello.html page, we want to welcome the user along with his name. So what we do here is that we type in welcome, not welsome, it should be welcome. And right after welcome, as we wanted to display the username, which is currently stored in this name variable, we go right here and we give curly brackets and one more curly bracket within the bracket, and we just specify the name over here. So I'm going to type in name over here. So what this thing actually does is that it displays welcome and the name variable, which basically holds this username right here, which we have passed into the URL. So once this thing is done, we are pretty much good to go. So now let me just save the code and let me open up my terminal, or the command prompt, whatever you want to say. And always remember that if you are actually shutting down the terminal every time, you need to enter the virtual environment even before you run your application. So for example, right now if I navigate to cd desktop / Flask site, and if I try to run the application, which is app.py, let's see what happens. So if I type in python app.py, as you could see, this thing does not run because it says that there is no module named Flask, and that is because we have not installed Flask normally over here, but instead we have created a virtual environment. So even before you try to run this application, what you need to make sure is that you have entered the virtual environment. So we navigate to cd env /scripts, and then we type in activate, which would activate the virtual environment. And now we return back to the main directory folder, which is Flask site, and then you could type in python app.py. So when you hit enter, the app would be up and running on the server. And let me just open up my browser, and when I type in the localhost address :5000 slash, and the URL was welcome slash username. So if I go back here and if I type in welcome slash my name, and when I hit enter, as you could see, it says welcome Ashutosh. And this is how we could actually pass in data from a particular URL to a particular template. So let's learn one more time what we have done in this lecture. So what we wanted to do is that we basically wanted to pass in some data from a URL to a template. So in order to do that, we basically routed a function with a URL. So this is the URL which we are looking for, and the data which we actually wanted to pass to the function is actually presented in the form of a variable. So here, as you could see, username is actually a variable which we want to pass. Then we pass the same variable to the function which is index, and this index function is actually going to render a template which is hello.html, and along with it, it is actually going to pass in the username, and it is actually going to store it in the name variable. So once the username is stored in the name variable, we only need to access it in the hello.html file, which is nothing but our template. So if you switch back to hello.html, as you could see, this is how our file looks. So what we did is that we typed in the welcome message, and then to access the name, we used the curly brackets twice in one another, and we have specified the variable name which we want to display right over here. So as you could make out from this line, which is this particular line, that currently the username is stored in the name variable. So when you switch back over here, as we wanted to display the entered username, we have specified name over here. So that's how you could pass in actual data to your URL, and that's how you could use that passed data in the templates so that that data can be displayed in the template. So that's it for this lecture, and I hope you are able to understand how to pass in data to templates. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.